Good evening, YouTube, and welcome to the Piper Report. So it seems like just last week, I did a video discussing MMT and how MMT and other fiat currency economic systems, such as debt-free money, can only work if the US dollar is considered the most common form of exchange in the world. And this is essentially our credit. Our credit is our guarantee that we will pay them back, and we will pay countries back. We will pay off our debt. And we can make this guarantee based on the US dollar being the major currency exchange. Well, Venezuela is about to ditch the dollar. Now, I know most people are probably thinking, yeah, so what? It's Venezuela. They're a socialist country. It doesn't matter. Well, China is also starting to back their petrodollar by gold, with gold. It looks like countries like Russia, they're going to jump on this bandwagon. So the credit of the US may be in jeopardy. And this is why it is important to really try to elaborate on why economic principles like MMT and debt-free money, although good in theory, do have very possible and damaging consequences. If we, that is the US, loses our spot as the most common currency, if the International Monetary Fund no longer recognizes the US as the safest place to invest, no longer recognizes the US dollar as the most popular and safest form of currency exchange, we lose our credit. The US loses our credit. And countries like Venezuela, they are already backing away from us. China, by backing their petrodollars in gold, this is a serious first step. Now, let's put on our tinfoil hats for a while. It wouldn't surprise me if all of a sudden we see an overthrow of the Venezuela dictator, is it? Or president? I don't know. If we see an overthrow of the Venezuelan leader. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, that's a kind of conspiracy theory, but what better way to make sure the US dollar is at the forefront than by removing the person who wants to push us towards the back of the line. Here's the article. Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro said Thursday that Venezuela will be looking to free itself from the US dollar next week. According to the outlet, Maduro will look to use the weakest of two official foreign exchange regimes, essentially the way Venezuela will manage its currency in relation to other currencies and the foreign exchange market, along with a basket of currencies. According to Reuters, Maduro was referring to Venezuela's current official exchange rate, known as DICOM, in which the dollar can be exchanged for 3,345 bolivars. At the strongest official rate, $1 buys only 10 bolivars, which may be one of the reasons why Maduro wants to opt for some of the weaker exchange rates. Venezuela is going to implement a new system of international payments and will create a basket of currencies to free us from the dollar, Maduro said in a multi-hour address to a new legislative superbody. He reportedly did not provide details of this new proposal. Maduro hinted that the South American country will look to using the yen instead of the yuan, among other currencies. If they pursue us with the dollar, we'll use the Russian ruble, the yuan, the yen, the Indian rupee, the euro, Maduro also said. Venezuela sits on the world's largest oil reserves, but has been undergoing a major crisis, with millions of people going hungry inside the country, which has been plagued with rampant, increasing inflation. And there we go. That is a perfect example of the homeostasis of what happens when you try to implement a socialistic policy into a country like Venezuela, or into any country. Socialism doesn't work. It never has worked. And the goal of socialism is communism, Vladimir Lenin. In that context, the recently established economic blockade by the Trump administration only adds to the suffering of ordinary Venezuelans rather than helping their plight. According to Reuters, $1,000 worth of local currency obtained when Maduro came to power in 2013 is now be worth little over $1. A theory advanced in William Clark's book Petrodollar Warfare and largely ignored by the mainstream media essentially asserts that Washington-led interventions in the Middle East and beyond are fueled by the direct effect on the US dollar that can result if oil exporting countries opt to sell oil in alternative currencies. For example, in 2000, Iraq announced it would no longer use US dollars to sell oil in the global market. It adopted the euro instead. And then we, invade them? By February 2003, The Guardian reported that Iraq had netted a handsome profit after making this policy change. Despite this, the U.S. invaded not long after and immediately switched the sale of oil back to the U.S. dollar. Okay. I confess, I didn't read this whole article before I started the video. I read the first paragraph or two. Right here. This is kind of what I meant. How it wouldn't surprise me if all of a sudden we see an overthrow of the Venezuelan president, and all of a sudden the new leader wants to go back to the U.S. dollar. The U.S. may lose its popularity. It may lose the U.S. dollar as the most safest currency, the most common exchange, especially with China now backing their petrodollar with gold. This is serious. And it goes back to my MMT video. It's not that hard for the U.S. to lose its credit. People think that the U.S. will always be on top. This isn't true. We're seeing this right now. We are seeing this right now. In Libya, Gaddafi was punished for a similar proposal to create a unified African currency backed by gold, which would be used to buy and sell African oil. Though it sounds like a ludicrous reason to overthrow a sovereign government and plunge the country into humanitarian crisis, Hillary Clinton's leaked emails confirmed this was the main reason Gaddafi was overthrown. We came, we saw, he died. That's Hillary. The French were especially concerned by Gaddafi's proposal and, unsurprisingly, became one of the war's main contributors. Iran has been using alternative currencies like the yuan for some time now and shares a lucrative gas field with Qatar, which may be ultimately be days away from doing the same. Both countries have been vilified on the international stage, particularly under the Trump administration. Nuclear giants China and Russia have been slowly but surely abandoning the US dollar as well, and the U.S. establishment has a long history of painting these two countries as hostile adversaries. Again, it's not hard to lose credit. The U.S. can lose its credit. We won't always be number one in the world in terms of our monetary policy, in terms of our fiscal dominance. Those who think we will be are delusional. They're just hoping for something that cannot be proven, that cannot be safely ascertained. Now Venezuela may ultimately join the bandwagon, all the while cozying up to Russia, as well as, unsurprisingly, Venezuela and Iran were identified in Clark's book as attracting particular geostrategic tensions with the U.S. The CIA's admission that it intends to interfere inside Venezuela to exact a change of government, combined with Trump's recent threat of military intervention in Venezuela and Mike Pence's warning that the U.S. will not stand by and watch Venezuela deteriorate, all start to make a lot more sense when viewed through this geopolitical lens. What initially sounded like conspiracy theory seems to be more plausible reality as countries that begin dropping the US dollar and opting for alternative currencies continuously and without exception end up targeted for regime change. If the US steps up its involvement in Venezuela, the reasons why should be clear to those who have been paying attention. And this also comes back to North Korea. North Korea is a sovereign country, completely sovereign from the U.S. influence, from the U.S. dollar. And I think that's also why that the U.S. wants to overthrow Korea. Again, I've taken a lot of heat for saying that I don't think we should actually proactively attack North Korea. And I'm going to be doing a video sometime soon going over an article how China said that if the U.S. proactively strikes North Korea, that means if they strike North Korea first, China will back up and defend North Korea. Think about that. If the U.S. attacks North Korea, China, the second biggest country in the world, with the second biggest military in the world, will back them up. Second biggest in terms of money spent on the military, not in people. I think they have 2 billion people in the military? I'm not sure. But things are coming to a head here. The U.S. dollar is not safe. When you don't have intrinsic value, you can never be certain of your credit. You can never take faith in your currency. Inflation will happen. credit will be destroyed. The dollar will continue to devalue. Eventually, it may be completely worthless. And then what do? It doesn't matter how much currency, how much fiat money you print from the Federal Reserve. If your dollar isn't worth anything, you can't do anything with having more and more money, except devalue your dollar more and more, which will hurt the lower class more and more. And I'm done.